Hello, and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy Podcast channel. My name is Jed. We are in the Is It All Relative book. We're one episode in, and we already have a question that we've been pondering, given to us by our friend Aaliyah. And that was hopefully one that you've been wondering about since last episode. That is, actually, let's have a look at it. Introduction to today. Is everything relative to personal opinion? Is there a truth? We had a commenter in our YouTube who expressed that idea very nicely, saying, let's read it properly. And feel free to comment on the YouTube videos. Opinion is completely intertwined with perspective, he says. They're honestly the same thing. Philosophical truth is, like many things in philosophy, highly debatable.
Debate dweeb.
Fact is what is true when you strip human thought away from it. If a mind is required to interpret it, then truth doesn't really exist. Light exists whether a person is there or not, same with gravity. Love or hate, political borders, philosophy itself, none of these exist outside of the mind, and the mind is pretty damn fickle. So that's a nice way of steel manning this argument, or this idea that our friend Harry has here. So, if our mind is fickle and philosophy is just all philosophical ideas are matters of debate and not dialectic, what we are learning to do as we are learning to read this text, which is follow steps of reasoning through questions and answers to find a truth, and that truth better be eternally true, or otherwise it's just a matter of opinion or beliefs that can change. Fact is when you strip human thought away from it. So we do see some dualism. What's true is independent from human capacity to perceive it. So if everything is a matter of belief and opinion, then that's the extent of human thought. There's no deeper perception or cognitive function like understanding or knowing or insight that can directly apprehend without the influence of our beliefs and opinions. Now, there are some things that exist outside of a person's mind, says this chatter. Light, gravity, the aspects of our physical world. Love or hate, aren't they just a matter of opinion? Political borders? Yeah, sure, they're two different things. Is there any way of loving or understanding true love, or what love is? Or what beauty is? In a higher way than just opinions? Or is beauty in just in the eye of the beholder? Political borders, of course, they're just man-made. Philosophy itself could just be an opinion. Now, what we've been seeing, what we saw last time, or in the last book that we were reading, Socrates calls that philodoxia. Modern academics who engage in debate and not dialectic are reframing philosophy, love, there's our love of wisdom, philos sophia, they present it as a philodoxia, love of opinions. So, you have someone who's very much in Harry's camp, but also articulating that point very well. And my audio's being silly. So a fantastic place for him to start. I hope he continues with these videos. There we go. Yeah, and if he finds his mind changing due to the arguments and proofs presented as we read, I wonder what he will go through as a human being, learning to engage with a different idea than what he's used to. Because there are two aspects in the human game that we deal with: truth and humanness. Knowing the truth is one thing, but recognizing that humans react to truth via interpretation of according to our personal beliefs means we have to go through some sort of development. So, what is that development? What will change your mind, chatter? Or commenter? Let's hope he shares what he goes through, if the arguments work or don't work, and we can see him go through his journey. So, we were also left with a question last time, which was, let's go to the cafe. And you can hear people talking in the background. I hope the music isn't too loud or too quiet. Here is the story that we are wondering about. Is a woman right to become furious at her lover when she discovers the reason he could appear so idyllic, even anticipating and meeting her every wish and desire, was because he had secretly made a copy of her personal diary and modeled himself to fit her dream wish? Now, the questions that I left with last time, what do you think? Does she have a right to be furious at her lover? He gave her what she wanted, met the appearance, and even was persuasive in convincing her that he was that very kind of person. Isn't that just as good as the reality itself? As far as she knows, it was. What would you say? What do you think Harry would say, given what you can understand of his position? His state of mind, his level of thinking? What do you think Joseph might say? And also of Harry and Joseph, who would have different positions, how would they each communicate it to the other? So not just what they think, how well can they communicate what they think? Or in what manner do you think? So those were some questions we left you with last time. How did you go? Now let's keep reading. Bring in our posse. That's Mr. Joseph. Bring in Harry. There you are, Harry. Bring in Aaliyah. There you are, Aaliyah. All sitting at the table, listening to some Greek tavern restaurant music. That's royalty free. And some people chatting in the background. Harry, with the deep voice. I just said that it shouldn't have made any difference to her since he gave her what she wanted. That's why you read menus after all, says Harry. That's why you read menus. So you don't have to guess what can be served. So no more of these pointless stories, says Harry. Stay on the point. You are right, Harry, says Joseph. We should stay on the point. Well, let me go back to our last point and ask this. When you can't distinguish between the real and the appearance, or determine the difference between the knowers and those who act the part of knowers, do you still want to call that kind of thing knowing? Maybe so, maybe not. It's really simple. Men strut on the stage of life like peacocks, acting out the game of knowing. Hey, welcome, Reeve. As someone once said. Welcome. This is the second episode of a new book called Is It All Relative? You can find the PDF below. Now that we've got to almost 200 episodes of our previous book, and if you remember, it finished with a kind of block. Our friend Jesus was blocked from being able to follow the dialectic and explore the ideas, and we even came to identify the class of belief that blocked his participation in the dialectic. We identified it as the seventh hypothesis, and we came to realize that you sure are hardworking. Yeah, we have fun. We have fun here. It's the best fun. I find it the best fun. I think it's the most sensible and rational thing that we can do while we're alive, is wonder what we are, what we have to work with, this mind, how far does it go, what reach does it have, what causes our problems, how do we overcome those problems, and how do we reach our intended purpose or meaning of life or destiny? How do we get there? And what happens as a result? So all of these things, I find it most normal, rational, to ask these questions. And to answer these questions, you have to be reading these books that we read. A few authors or a few human beings have also had that curiosity and seeked to answer those questions and got there. Pierre Grimes, Socrates, make sure we read the Balboa translation, so you are actually reading what he said and not the interpretations from the beliefs of the translators, and Homer, because they reflect the intelligibility of reality called the self-logos, and they're about the self, which is the most meaningful thing. What are you? And if the self is also the most fundamental and most immediate, seems like you'd want to know what it is. And if it also turns out to be the most transcendent as the first and final cause, then it's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win.
It's a win-win-win. And so, as far as I can see, no one's really doing that. So we do it here. And luckily we have people like you who come in and share your thoughts and your wonder, so it's not a completely lonely journey answering those questions that I think we all really want to understand. I think essentially we all want to understand ourselves, understand our problems, understand our purpose, understand what we're supposed to be doing here and what happens when we leave planet Earth. So it's kind of the thing that we all want to do. So I felt like we should do it. So, the end of the last book, we recognize that Jesus was blocked from continuing the dialogue with Socrates in heaven, in that book called Socrates and Jesus: A Dialogue in Heaven. And we were even able to develop a graph, or what would we call it? A map of the stages of cognitive development we go through, from images, beliefs, understanding, knowing, into the self. But also recognize that on that same map, you can recognize all of the classes or categories of human problems, the categories of false beliefs that humans can identify with and get attached to, that block our development. And we were able to recognize Jesus's worldview, that there is no meaning. It's essentially Earth is essentially a battleground between the forces of good and the forces of evil, the devils and God, and that's it. Which is very which is the same category of belief that we are addressing here. So that essential worldview opposes understanding. It opposes philosophy. It opposes philodeinoia, the love of understanding, which it seems to be our purpose. Only through understanding can you answer these questions. And understanding requires there to be a hierarchical system that you can move through and develop through, and there to be some providence or care from those of the higher positions to those of the lower, which is the dialectic. The dialectic are people like yourself and the other people who are coming along with this channel, learning how to ask questions and follow Logos as it unfolds to explore certain key ideas like, does truth exist? Is beauty real? Is love just a matter of opinion, or is there a purpose to love? All of the questions we've been talking about today. But if your position is the seventh hypothesis, sometimes called Zoroastrian, or the worldview behind the Abrahamic religions, then you're against that. There is no truth, there is no understanding, there is no providential connection. You can't understand the source of human problems individually or collectively. All you can do is blow up the people who disagree with you and claim it's okay because God says so, or president said so, or capitalist boss says so, or mummy and daddy says so. So it's very dangerous, because it leads to, well, if you can't solve problems by reaching truth through understanding, and it's all just a matter of belief and opinions, then how do you solve disagreements? Punishment, violence, genocide, and ultimately what we're facing, add nuclear weapons to that mix and you have the extinction of our species, Armageddon, which we're racing towards. Now, of that same category is, well, another opposition to understanding is not only no providential connection, but no distinctions. Your opinion is true to you, and my opinion is true to me, and whatever seems true is true to the person to whom it seems. Right? And we don't want to be rude and say that some opinions are wrong or bad or worse. So if everything's a matter of opinion, there is essentially no truth, and all you really need to do is give the appearance of knowing what you're talking about so you can scam people out of their money, or maybe become an authority figure within politics or religion or capitalism and meet all of your personal material conditions at the expense of truth and scamming others, right? And if philosophy is exactly what we have defined, following the Logos out of opinions and beliefs, mastering the art of understanding that can open us up to higher cognitive functions beyond even understanding, knowing, insight, where we can not just understand the truth about reality, but experience it, verify it in experience. This is what philosophy is, the love of wisdom or knowing and understanding. Then what's the point? If there's no truth and everything is a matter of opinion, then philosophy is a waste of time. Right? Meaning is a waste of time. Truth is a waste of time. Life is a waste of time. If everything is a matter of opinion and perspective. Isn't that right? Isn't that what Fox News tells us? Demonstrates for us? Hey, the biggest liar, scammer, unjust person is fantastic and great and loves you, says the Epstein class billionaire owned media companies. And that's what we read here. So the same kind of, we read this literal thing. Last time, president. If you can get someone who acts like a president elected into office, then you don't have an actor for a president, you have a real president, right? There you have it. That's the perfect case. There is no difference between the appearance and the actual. And surely no harm will come from that. And this is the kind of thinking behind the Abrahamic religions that Jesus used to shut down the conversation with Socrates in heaven. Hey, we'll never come together, Socrates, because we have fundamentally different beliefs. You have your beliefs in the gods and I have mine, and mine is better because my family is the right family and we're the chosen people and all that stuff. And Socrates had to turn around and say, no, that's not actually the case. While you may be at the level of belief, I understand gods differently, and we can come together through understanding. So maybe you've heard the idea that everything is a matter of opinion, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Whatever appears to be true is true for you. My truth, says Oprah. It's my truth that some bullshit. So it's a very, very common catchphrase, axiom. It's a common meme in our culture, often used by people in positions of authority to maintain their power over others. Hey, it's just my opinion. Your opinion's different than mine. We're all entitled to our own opinion. There's no real truth, and so no standards you have to hold me to. And all this philosophy is a waste of time. So, very common, potentially very dangerous, as we've been, not only for humanity, but individually. What happens if you are in Jesus' position in a dialogue with Socrates? And you hold the belief that there is no truth. How will that help your participation in the most meaningful activity that we can engage in, the dialectic? So, blocks us. So that's the theme of this book. So, there's my introduction for today. So, we didn't have an introduction, but now we have one, thanks to our friend Reeve. So, we were left with a question. Great introduction. Thank you. Now we have some characters here at this restaurant. This the Greek Corner Restaurant and Cafe. That's where we are here. And when we go inside, we'll hear people talking. We have some characters. We have Mr. Joseph, who has been hanging around Golden West College in California, around Huntington Beach, Orange County, California. His friend left. His name was Harry. Here's Harry here. He went to a different college in San Francisco and traveled around. And he thinks that philosophy is a waste of time because everything is a matter of opinion and beliefs. And hey, the best you can do is, model the beliefs of people around you so you can give the appearance of knowing. He came in with Aaliyah. Here's Aaliyah. Harry is an ass. To Harry you say,
"You suck. You're ugly."
Poor Harry.
How can you be this stupid? How is it legal? How is it legal?
Here's Aaliyah. She's been quiet. She's only just begun the conversation. And those are our three characters in the restaurant with us. And after Harry shared that sentiment, hey, if you get an actor elected president, then he's president. It's not an actor anymore. So essentially, there's no difference between the appearance and the actual, when the appearance becomes the actual. Joseph said that reminds me of a story. Harry doesn't really like puzzling over stories, but we know that to find a puzzle in a story and to carry it as a question is to be on a quest. And there's the quest music of the video game that I must not play as much as I want to play that game, because it's brilliant. I mustn't. And then Aaliyah shares the story. And that's where we are. So now you're up to date. I asked Harry for his answer to a question I've heard you ask, Joseph. Only it pushed him out of shape. Every once in a while it comes back to me, and I kind of chuckle over it. It's the one that asks if the woman was right to become furious at her lover when she discovered the reason that he could appear so ideal, even anticipating and meeting her every wish and desire, was because he had secretly made a copy of her personal diary and modeled himself to fit her dream wish. By the way, Reeve, how's the volume of the background music? I turned it up a little bit. Let me know if it's too loud or too quiet. Harry jumps in. I just said that it shouldn't have made any difference to her since he gave her what she wanted. That's why you read menus, so you don't have to guess what is being served. So no more of these pointless stories. Just stay on point. And Joseph says, "You are right, Harry. We should stay on point. On the point. Well, it's okay. We can still hear you well, but it could maybe be a bit more discreet as it's not essential." Okay, turn it down a little bit. There we go. Turn it down, 2 dB. Maybe a bit more. There we go. Let me go back to our last point and ask this. When you can't distinguish between the real and the appearance, or determine the difference between the knowers and those who act the part of knowers, do you still want to call that kind of thing knowing? Maybe so, maybe not. It's really simple. Men strut on the stage of life like peacocks, acting out the game of knowing, as someone once said. So, he's quoting Shakespeare, of course, but also mixing in some common modern ideas of peacocking. The whole pickup artist, red pill, Joe Rogan sphere, scam economy that we live in, that teaches people how to peacock, or to give the appearance of being a high-value man so they can scam women into thinking that they're worthwhile and have sex with them. It's a very common idea today. Joseph. But Harry, we realized we were fooled. If we realized we were fooled, then we had to recognize that they gave a good appearance of being knowers. Doesn't that mean that at one time we couldn't distinguish reality from its appearance, but then at another time we could? Yeah, that's true, I guess. We can be fooled by a good performance, or even a good appearance. Says Joseph. Now, if I or anyone else asked you to name that reality behind the appearance, you would likely answer, wouldn't you? What would you have to say? Oh, this is a good line of arguing. If someone was giving the appearance of knowing and then you found out they were tricked, you might say, good job in acting. But what's that thing that you realized wasn't there? Harry says, knowledge. Is that the answer you want? Doesn't like having to say that. So there must be something we can intuit there that we have recognized isn't there when we recognize we've been fooled. Interesting, because our friend Harry here doesn't want to say there's such a thing as knowledge. Joseph, and isn't it fair to say that whether you are being fooled or not, you are only judging an appearance instead of the presence or absence of knowledge? Now, Harry, can you judge whether the given appearance is actually an appearance if you have no knowledge of the reality behind it? Go ahead and conclude from your little word games, Joseph. But I don't believe you have to conclude that way. All is belief. There's nothing other than belief. So here we see Harry struggling with what we were talking about at the beginning, that we mentioned at the beginning of today. How do we change our minds? What happens when we come across something that goes against what we are used to and dearly believe? And hey, and if it turns out that we believe something that turns out to be false, then maybe we were tricked into believing someone was knowing when they were just given the appearance. Can that be difficult to admit? Can it be especially difficult to admit when those people who gave the appearance were our dear loved ones or parental figures? So Harry doesn't like this. So what's the idea? So if we were tricked, and we find out we tricked, there must be something that exists that we call knowing, that we can say that scammer doesn't have it. And if you don't have that knowledge yourself, it can be hard to recognize, or you won't be able to recognize it. Can you judge whether the given appearance is actually an appearance if you have no knowledge of the reality behind it? Harry doesn't like where that's heading, and so he restates his personal beliefs instead of following the conversation and asking the question. He's blocked from concluding. You can conclude from your word games. Makes it about him personally, which is so we can also learn about the way of functioning of this kind of a person and this kind of a state of mind by the key words he uses. So far he keeps talking about who is to say what's right and wrong, not what is to say what's right and wrong. Who are you to judge? Who are you to say? And now he's saying your word games. Notice he's making it about people, personalities. While understanding relates to the transpersonal. If it's understandable, it's true for everyone, for always. So we have a division. The personal opinions, images, and beliefs below the line, and above the line, that which is claimed to be transpersonal, understanding, knowing, and maybe beyond that, the self, which is of course the realm of true philosophy. Compared to modern academia, because remember, our friend Harry here learnt this at a kind of university. Now, Golden West was where the Pierre Grimes was a teacher, so one of, if not the only place where you could learn this, or true philosophy. Modern philosophy, of course, philodoxia, love of opinion. So we can see it also. So we're not just following the arguments ourselves, we're also seeing if we can learn about the thinkers too. Is there a structure behind their thought? Not only a structure, but are there key terms? Notice how Joseph is structuring his thinking in a certain kind of a way, asking a question, judging the answer, the next question, and then the next question, trying to keep the conversation focused, following a structure. Notice how he's using key words: appearance, knowing, judging. Equally, notice that there is a different kind of structure within Harry, or someone who thinks that everything is an opinion. He won't conclude. He's reluctant to wonder about the story that Aaliyah shared. He passes off the conclusions that should be mutual, because it's just the conclusion, as your conclusion, makes things personal. Goes off track. Instead of following the logos, he restates his own position. Well, I think this. Well, where did you pull that out of? Completely out of left field. So there's keywords and structure. Now, because we're interested in learning the dialectic, our method of following the logos, we can recognize, as we looked at last time, whoops, here we go. Can we look for the structure of the dialectic? Definition, demonstration, divisions, and conclusion. And can we look for the key terms called the self-logos or the selfers? Knowing, understanding, self, beliefs, image thinking. These are key words that describe cognitive functions. Beauty, justice, truth. These are the key words that talk about goodness. Whole and part, same and different, like and unlike. These are the key words that talk about oneness. These cognitive functions, along with their objects, the physical world, the world of mind and being, and the world of self, along with the principles of analogy, lesser is to greater, a shepherd is to the king, a shepherd is to his sheep as a king is to his people, lesser to greater, and greater to ultimate. The false, the truth, and the principle of true. So lesser, greater, ultimate. These are the key words related to truth. So these are some key words that we can look out for. And why do they fall under those categories? Well, certain keywords that we use in philosophy to talk about mind, which is the transpersonal realm of knowing and understanding above the physical world. How do we describe that peak experience? Ousia, mind turning around to know itself. How do we describe what it's like to have that deep insight? People talk about it as experiencing a oneness, experiencing a goodness. It was blissful, it was beautiful, it was beauty itself. It became the object of my love. That's called philosophy, falling in love with it, philos, Sophia. And of course, it was the most real thing I've ever experienced, they say, or it was the truth. And of course, if we notice these are all adjectives, we can ask the question, what's the cause? What's the noun, the substantive that gave rise as the cause of these adjectives? The one for oneness, the good for goodness, and the true for truth, which are all words used to describe the self. The one self, the good self, and the true self. And for any text to be meaningful, ultimately it should be about the self. That's true philosophy. So, these three categories gives us a bunch of, sets, a bunch of basketball teams. If the coach is the one and the captain is oneness, the players on the team, whole, part, same, other, the pairs. If the coach is good and the captain of the team is goodness, his members of under his rulership, beauty, justice, goodness, and you can say the same thing for truth. So these are the terms that we can look out for. And if that went over your head, that's okay. Take what you can get and keep them as questions, or just ignore them if they are that's confusing to you. So a bunch of terms and a structure we can look for and compare how well that these people participate in either. Because we have Mr. Harry. Saying, go ahead and conclude from your little word games, your. But I don't believe you have to conclude in that way. Belief. All is belief. So there's some key words, and now the structure. He's just starting with a declarative statement of his personal opinion. All is belief. There's nothing other than belief. But how can, says Joseph, but how can we escape the conclusion? Aren't you very knowledgeable? How can we escape the conclusion, Harry? Aren't you very knowledgeable? Just recall what you have said. Just said. Don't you claim to know that all who have mastered any part of science, math, and other subjects can only give an appearance of having knowledge, but do not have knowledge? You know too that the facts of today are tomorrow's folly, don't you? You know that the best appearance of knowing is indistinguishable from knowledge, as long as it is believed to be true, and so it must be knowledge, mustn't it? Aren't these some of the things you say you know? Ooh. So what's he doing? He is using his ability to think in a clear, structured way to bring together Harry's scattered thoughts by restating his position more accurately, which is the role of the dialectician as well. An analogy, you come to a doctor and you'll say, I have an ouchie on my arm. A doctor might say, so you have a protuberance on your elbow. Refining it, restating it, making it clear, using his medical knowledge. Now, I'm not a doctor. I'm just giving the appearance of one by talking about a protuberance. And if you have some knowledge of medicine, you might be able to recognize that it was just an appearance. So, restating his position, which is, don't you claim to know that all who have mastered a part, so those who have mastered any part, can only give the appearance of having knowledge, So he's linking mastery with appearance. And do not have knowledge. The facts of today's are tomorrow's folly. Right? Newton with his apple to discover gravity that way. When then Einstein came along and realized that's not actually how gravity works. Now that we can measure things closer to the speed of light, it's more about warping space-time. So, the facts of today are tomorrow's folly. You know that the best appearance of knowing is indistinguishable from knowing. The best appearance, so you can't even tell. So long as it's believed to be true. And so, if you can't make if you can't distinguish them, and a bunch of people believe, you get 100 idiots in a room believing something is true, at a MAGA rally, or a church or synagogue, or what church? What do they call a Mormon church? Because they have the magic underpants.
Goon, 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 goon.
And they do the soaking with the gooning.
Goon, 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 goon.
Temple? Synagogue? Whatever they call it. Church, I suppose. Mormon church. So that must be knowledge. So, 3 key ideas. Even if you've mastered it, the best you can give is no idea. Yeah, me neither. I know they have magic underpants and they can only do soaking, which is very goonish.
Gooner.
Gooner. Even if you have mastered some subject, the best you can do is give an appearance. Number 2, theories come in and out of fashion. Number 3, if the best actor can convince a lot of people to believe, and no one can make the distinguishment, no one can distinguish appearance from knowing, it must be knowledge. So restating his position, and saying, hey, by the way, aren't each of these principles things you claim to know? So notice Harry's own position where he makes these truth claims contradicts his very position that you can't make truth claims. You could dismiss all of these as just his opinion, which is a very frustrating thing if you are wanting to talk to someone you care about, or something important or urgent or dangerous. Anything you say, you could say, dismiss, oh, that's just your opinion. Hey, maybe we shouldn't drop a nuclear weapon. That's just your opinion. Maybe belief is the cause of all human problems and we shouldn't allow conservatism to exist because it's a political party defined by personal pathologos beliefs, which function in opposition to goodness, truth, and humanity itself, and will only bring suffering, exploitation, and eventual extinction of our species. We shouldn't allow that in the same way we don't allow doctors to kill their patients. And then the billionaire will come along and say, well, that's just your opinion. So, by the way, that everything is just an opinion? Is that an opinion itself, or are you stating that as a fact? Harry's response. I'll tell you something, you Joseph. It's true that I may have overstated my case for a moment, but my position is still sound. It may or may not apply to math and science, but it does especially apply to matters of morals, dun dun dun, ethics, politics, and religion. Notice, these are the things that you can't see as urgent immediately, like a broken arm or a math equation. These are the things that are used to manipulate people en masse by the most sick, sadistic exploiters of our species. These are the things that are dismissed as being knowable. You can't know the nature of God, so allow religion to exist. How many people have been exploited and murdered in the name of religion? Women to this day are still being exploited and treated as less than men, closer to cattle, because religion says so. No, not because religion says so, because of the personal opinions of those claiming to speak through their belief in God. Politics, same thing. Serving not the people they're supposed to be serving, but the interest of the Epstein billionaire class who kill people for profit and fun. Morals and ethics, same thing. So, these are the things that we say you can't know, it's just a matter of opinion, because it's more difficult to see the urgency and danger of it, as you can something like 2 and 2 is 4, or you got a broken arm, go to a doctor. We don't say, oh, you've got a broken society, go to a philosopher. We don't say that. Got a problem with a person or society, instead of going to a religious official or a politician, go to a philosopher. The person who knows these things and is qualified to deal with them properly like a doctor. Don't say that. So, Harry is doing a fantastic job in demonstrating this worldview. Oh, okay, well, this idea that there is no truth and it's all a matter of opinions and perspective. By the way, wasn't that our friend in the YouTube comment talking about the same thing? Or maybe if you strip away certain human thoughts, you could look at math and science. But in terms of politics, religions, morals, and ethics, it's whatever you say is true. So, Harry's stating his position really nicely. And of course, these are the big ones that cause suffering every single day for everyone on our planet until we wake up. That's the significance of this particular book and this idea, and learning to address it in a fair, rational way. Alright, it may not apply to math and science, says our friend Harry, but it does especially apply to matters of morals, ethics, politics, and religion. For in each of these areas, it is easy to see that no one is wiser than another. So maybe calling back to what we're seeing, if you don't have knowledge of these things, it can be hard to judge whether someone is a scammer or is the real thing. And the more you learn, the more you'll be able to recognize scammers. So the things that we say as obvious, capitalism, conservatism, and religion, are the root causes of human injustice and suffering within our species, because they are all belief-based, and belief opposes truth, understanding, goodness, oneness, truth, understanding, mind, and knowing, all of these self-logos terms. Therefore, within society or within your soul, to be ruled by anything based on belief will always be harmful, because that's how belief functions. It's obvious to us because we've just had 200 episodes of the Socrates and Jesus, A Dialogue in Heaven book. But to people who haven't gone through that book with us and read it in the way we read it, carefully, without interpretation, it can be hard to see. So you're left looking at a world, well, that person says God wants the Jews to kill the Palestinians, and that person says they want the Americans to kill the Iranians and Iraqis and Muslims. That person says God wants us to wear magic underpants and do soaking.
Goon, 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 goon.
Bunch of gooners.
They're like a goon. They're a gooner.
They're a gooner. And if all of these people are full of shit, then there is no standard. Same thing with all of the politicians who, again, we have no standard because we don't understand philosophy, real philosophy. So we allow belief-based people in positions of politics. So it would appear that, hey, they're all idiots. They're all liars. They're all scammers. They're all deluded, knowingly scamming or just ignorant. So how can you say one person's ignorance is more superior than the other? Right. Hey, if these religious peoples claim that God is this or that and they're bullshit, then there is no God. These politicians say that this extreme injustice is justice, then there is no justice. And this is something that we've been seeing in our reading. That's why even if you're not religious yourself, you still have to go through the activity of philosophical midwifery because it's still influencing you in some way. So many atheists who don't get into philosophy to know the nature of self, the nature of the divine, the nature of God, which is the self, well, perhaps the self, they don't think it's worth it because they've been lied to their whole life by people claiming to be experts, claiming to be knowers of that which they don't know. So until you go through the work of purifying the idea of that asshole, shouldn't say asshole, it's an important function, that jerk as is the image of knowing, until you get rid of that, you might think, well, I'm not going to be a knower, I'm not going to be a philosopher, or there is no knowing, until you realize that that person who had the appearance isn't the standard. That's why philosophical midwifery, the activity of the dialectic to surface our dear images and models of knowing that were only appearance, is essential for every single human being on the planet who's ever existed. And any, in principle, if that's true, any intelligent species who has developed to the point of being able to create beliefs, because that's the functioning of beliefs. So, Harry demonstrating this principle very nicely when he says, in matters of morals, ethics, politics, and religion, truth doesn't apply. For in each of these areas, it is easy to see that no one is wiser than another. And since all judgments are relative to one's culture, then no one can say one is superior to another. So here we have the idea of relative, which is the key idea of the book. It's all relative, including to one's culture. How does our friend Joseph respond to such a person telling us his problem? Well, it is good to finally get your position on its firmest ground, which is what we've been saying, isn't it? No, sit down, Ilya. Sure. You're one of those people who try to nail down what can't be hammered down. Now, go ahead and ask me whatever you wish. You can see that he's suspicious, and he doesn't like the activity of truth, the dialectic. Trying to nail me down, I just want to say stuff. Right? Like every politician on television? Like every religious figure on some interview? Like every capitalist scammer? They always try and not say anything so they can't ever be nailed down, so they can't ever be exposed as lying. So therefore, this art of dialectic that Joseph is demonstrating, we all need to learn and demand for every single interviewer that ever exists. The art of directing or guiding a dialogue. But those who are opposed to truth and goodness might find that threatening. Ask me what you want. Go ahead. Trying to nail me down. Joseph says. When people become members of this or that political or religious group, what would you say they are trying to achieve? Or do you believe that people come together and form groups for no reason? So, what's their goal, do you think? To get what they can't achieve alone. Some benefit? Oh. Notice one of those selfers within those categories we mentioned. Let's put them on the board. Selfer, selfers, or self-logos terms. We've got the category of oneness. Oops. Oneness. That deal with the pairs, the duads. Whole and part. Everything that you've seen is a part of a whole or a whole of parts. Everything you've thought about, everything you've experienced has been same as something, and that is a thing, but it's different as well because it's a different thing. It's been like some things, but also unlike if it's a new thing. It's either unlimited or free or infinite. Unlimited. Like numbers. Is there a limit to numbers? Is there a limit to space? Or are they unlimited? Or they've been limits. And we've talked about the limits of belief as well. It's either been at rest or in motion. Can't be anything other than these things, right? And it's either been out of time, like mind or being or the transpersonal, out of time, or those insight experiences, or you've experienced it in time. We can add other ones in there like self and other. The key terms we use in the dialectic. Definition, self in relation to itself. Demonstration, how that subject or self relates to others. Divisions, how that other relates to other others. And conclusion, can you synthesize an other that you can take back to the subject and understand it having gone through that process? We looked at this last time. We talked about the basketball team of goodness. Talked about justice. Let's put beauty at the top, why not? Beauty, justice, benefit, excellence, the things that we desire for ourselves. There are more in that list, of course. And then we talked about truth. Lesser, used for analogy as well. The lesser, a shepherd is to a sheep like a king is to his people. The lesser term is the shepherd, the greater term is the king. Lesser to greater. But there has to be a principle of analogy or a principle of truth. Call that the ultimate. So we talk about, so we can say things like, using these terms, the greater dimension of reality we can call goodness or beauty, justice, benefit, excellence, describes the level of mind the greater level of reality. The lesser reality is the physical world through our perceptions from which we derive our beliefs and opinions. The lesser, or the distorted reflection where we see appearances of beauty or justice, or the false or lesser, people claiming to be just when they're lying, the scammers, and every scammer has to appeal to belief. If you understand the truth, you can't be tricked. Either tricked about your goal, because we seek goals, but to reach a goal, there are steps to reach the goal. The transpersonal things like understanding, knowing, wisdom, allow us to understand the good goal that we seek. We call that the intelligible goal, because we know for ourselves that experience. Intelligible. If you understand or know what's good for you, and someone says, hey, give me all your money because Jesus said so, that's a good goal because you'll go to heaven, but you know what heaven really is. It's not literal, it's a state of being, of mind. Then you are not going to be tricked into giving them all your money. But if you are someone who thinks in terms of belief, you can be tricked into thinking the bad goal. Belief. You can be tricked to think the bad is good. The bad or the unintelligible is actually a good goal worth seeking. Equally the same, hey, your goal has to be, this applies for all people, especially politicians, religious, morals, and ethics. We need to be able to make intelligible the goal, but also make sure that the steps are good. So a politician will say, hey, if we bomb these people that we want to steal their resources from, we will end up with a good goal. Now, the good steps to reach the goal is called being rational. The bad steps, or to be tricked through belief that if you do a bad thing, you'll get a good result. Bombing, punishment, murder, enslavement, capitalism, all of these things, any allowing for beliefs to rule, that's called being irrational. Therefore, in principle, belief is necessary to manipulate people into acting in bad ways and against their benefit, because you need belief to trick people into seeking a bad goal or to following bad steps, which is why modern Hitler Netanyahu claims to speak for the Jewish religion. I'm going to do these bad things because it will reach a good goal. We're going to do this genocide because religion. Or Donald Trump, outspokenly against religion and Christianity until he became president and realized this is his base. He seeks bad goals, but he needs belief into tricking people to think that those bad goals are good goals actually. And he tries to seek those goals in irrational ways. So he needs belief to trick people that doing an irrational thing will actually be a good step against their benefit. And so in principle, we have the good is transpersonal. It's beyond the personal. It's open for everyone. Universal principles are universally applied to universally benefit, whereas belief is in the realm of the personal. Personal beliefs. Personal beliefs, personal opinions, personal images. Personal image thinking. Shapes and colors. Brown person is bad because Fox News told me. So this is something that if this goes over your head, then check out that last series we've just finished on Jesus and Socrates, a dialogue in heaven, where we go through the steps to build these maps and this dialectic on belief being necessary cause of human suffering and exploitation. We build it together in the work that we did on the last series, so check that out. But I'm bringing them back up because we have our friend Harry really leaning on personal beliefs and images, while Joseph is trying to get him to follow rational steps of understanding to reach the intelligible good goal, which is not a personal idea, but transpersonal. Whereas Harry keeps saying, that's your word game, that's your conclusion, that's your opinions. And so Joseph bringing in the idea of benefit is key. So we can see why he's bringing in the idea of benefit. Benefit should blow Harry's position out of the water. Because to reach a benefit, you have to actually seek a good goal, not some fascist's opinion as a good goal. And you have to follow rational steps, not hoping thoughts and prayers for the mass shooting victims. And then tomorrow, another mass shooting in an American school. Thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers. It's a scam by the billionaire Epstein class to keep us in fear and to make profit. Doesn't benefit. So that might be why he's introducing that here, because beliefs, opinions, image thinking is necessary for harm against our benefit. And also we can recognize the key terms he's using, because he's pulling out words that are true, words that are transpersonal, the self-ers or self-logos terms. Benefit is one of them. Within the basketball team, whose captain is goodness. So therefore, if you want to describe the peak experience of mind knowing itself, you could use any of these words, or you could bring them together into these three primary ones. If that goes over your head, that's okay. Back to the reading. So, Why do these groups, these political or religious groups, to whom you say they're allowed to, math and science, there's truth, I suppose, but there's no truth in morals, ethics, or politics and religion. By the way, why do they come together in a group? To achieve something, he says. Some benefit? What else? Then, says Joseph, wouldn't you say that there are likely to be times when the leaders of these groups make decisions which they hope will benefit their members? See? Step by step, taking him through it carefully. So the leaders hope will benefit. Sure enough, and they are likely to make decisions to benefit themselves too. Do we call that corruption? When a doctor makes a decision to benefit himself and not his patient, is that called corruption? Do we allow it for spiritual leaders who fly in gold planes and political leaders who make billions of dollars shorting the market of oil or housing caused by problems they create? Or get paid off by big energy conglomerates to never pay taxes? Keep going. Personal comments, I apologize for those. I don't really. It's important to recognize the relevance of what we're talking about here. Sure enough, and they're likely to make decisions to benefit themselves too, says Harry. Joseph, and do you think it would be likely for each member of the group to reach totally different conclusions from those of their leaders regarding what may benefit or harm their particular group? Right? We're not all the same level of intelligence. Each member, totally different conclusions about benefit and harm. Since according to you, each person views things from a different and unique position. No, I don't believe each person would necessarily have a different opinion, but they might. And isn't it also likely that the group's leaders may consult with others and discuss the issues facing them? Yes. And wouldn't we call those with whom they consult advisors? For even those who only listen to their own advice can be said to have an advisor themselves. Of course. But if advice is offered, does that mean it will be true just because it seems to be? What do you think? Will it necessarily be true just because it seems so? Why wouldn't it be true to them? Interesting way of pointing this out to someone. Consider this. If what seems true is in reality true, then in that case, no man or institution could ever make a mistake. Boom. Truth bomb. Right? So we've talked about a technique of making the situation urgent with politics, religion, morals, or ethics. It's not immediate and urgent. So they can say, yeah, there's no harm for people having religious beliefs, so long as they're not fundamentalist. Whereas if you're in the plane Is there any harm letting someone who believes they're a pilot land the plane? Oh, no, not while I'm on the plane, no. When you have a broken arm, do you just go to someone who believes they're a doctor? Well, no, I want an actual doctor. But it's okay for religion and politics. Oh yeah, there's no problems ever caused by politicians or religious people ever. Or if it's just your own personal belief, yeah. I mean, people have not been manipulated by politicians or religious figures before, and they never treat their kids that way. Oh, and they never live their entire life based on their beliefs, so harming even them. Of course they do. But here's another technique. Making it a paid advisor. It's one step removed. It's not your opinions, it's that guy's opinions, who's functioning as an advisor in order to get a real result. If everything is just, hey, it's my truth, if truth is just whatever it seems to be true, then no person or institution would ever make a mistake, because every advisor can offer their advice and it's always right because it feels right or seems right. Right? It's an interesting technique. What's he doing? One step removed or turning it into a profession? Providing an analogy through institutions and leaders. So we're wondering about not just what is being said, but the thinking behind the person saying it as well. And of course, the thinking behind Harry when he says, "You take everything too literally, Joseph." But don't you think that some people are better in advising than others? So here we go, better. So that some advice is better than other advice. Or Harry, perhaps you know leaders who prefer to discuss such issues with those in their group who are least able to discuss them intelligently. So what's he doing? If you are too immature to judge your own personal beliefs as ever being wrong, or you're taught that it's rude or impolite to judge other people's religious or political beliefs, what about someone who's getting paid? Can you judge someone else? Hey, within your group, are there some idiots? Is everyone just as smart? Can you judge that within your own group there are some people who give bad advice and are morons, and there are some people who can give better advice? He's providing the conditions where he can judge. Notice one of the key beliefs in our society run by fascists is don't judge. Don't judge me. It's bad to judge people. Of course you judge things. Hey, do you judge if a car's gonna hit you before you cross the street? Abso-fucking-lutely. So it's okay to judge there, but when is it not okay to judge? When it's the beliefs of fascists within religion, politics, or capitalism that are trying to enslave us and exploit us and destroy our species for profit and fun. Sadism. So he's making the conditions safe to judge. Hey, if you're getting advice for your group, or any group, are there some people within the group who won't go to advice? But if everything is just true for whoever it seems to be true, then that person's perspective is just as true as anyone else's. And you go to the dumbest person, judgment. Judging the dumbest person, you go to them. Let's see what Harry says about that. You made your point. Notice, not concluding. A dialectician needs to encourage someone to put it into words. That's why it's handy to have a blackboard. So any interviewer or debate that you organize, make sure you've got a blackboard. So they can't get away with, you made your point, as though it's not significant. You need to make the point in words, write it on the board, and build on it. What's the point? Judge that some people are stupid and they have bad opinions that are not true. So you won't go to them for advice, no advice. Because there's a difference between opinions and truth, or good advice and bad advice. Write it down on a board where everyone can see. So then some professional propagandist for genocide like Ben Shapiro can't say, all right, you made your point, but over here, let's talk about why the Hamas means we should murder children. Hamas? No, write it down. Write it down. Get them to conclude. Put it in words. Because that's our technique. We don't solve problems by murdering children, Ben Shapiro, or any of those fascists. We solve problems by understanding, which is moving from beliefs, which are personal, to the transpersonal. Like understanding. And we do that by following the rational steps of the dialogue to reach a intelligible, true goal. Understanding. The following of rational steps to reach an intelligible goal, or to think and function properly, that's the dialectic. So while beliefs are necessary to manipulate people to acting in bad ways and against their benefit, the next conclusion would be color. What color? This one? Different color. Okay. And dialectic uses rational steps, which we've said include terms and structure, to reach the intelligible goal. Therefore, thus, necessary to achieve benefit. And another word for rational is to follow logos, an intelligible, knowable in a transpersonal way. That's called ousia, our capacity for the self-reflection. It's the art of logos, or words, reason, and ousia, self-reflection. Words and self-reflection. That's the art of words and self-reflection. And what makes us different from cabbages and cows and caterpillars is we have language and self-reflection. That's what makes us evolve. Therefore, the dialectic is our, evolutionarily speaking, it's our purpose, intended function. So the meaning of life based on our evolutionary, highest function. So therefore, evolutionarily, our highest function. Therefore, our purpose, our meaning, the meaning of life. But to make use of our more evolved capacity for language and self-reflection, but also it's necessary to achieve our benefit, because because it makes use of rational steps to reach an intelligible goal, but also as we are seeing, not only does it use rational steps to reach our intelligible goal, it also also needed to purify what is false and harmful. And that's what we're seeing here. A false and harmful belief that Harry is carrying. If you can't see it yet, that's okay. We're getting a bit ahead of ourselves, but that's an understanding of the dialectic. It's simply our intended function, therefore our purpose to master, because it makes use of logos, language, words, and ousia, self-reflection, in a structured, systematic way, following rational steps to reach a beneficial, intelligible goal, and also is needed to surface what is false and harmful caused by personal beliefs, opinions, and image thinking. Hooray. Or to, another way of saying that is to transition from the personal to the transpersonal. Truth, goodness, benefit, understanding, oneness. So why are we bringing that up now? Because we need to insist that Harry puts it into words. That's what we're using. This purification of the root cause of all human problems is the dialectic. It uses two things. It guides self-reflection with words. If he's not putting words, he's going to walk away still carrying his false beliefs that will cause his harm. Or cause him to do harm when some politician or religious official or capitalist can exploit his unquestioned, unexamined false beliefs to go to war or to support capitalism or to do some terrible thing. That's why we have the board. We're putting it down in words. So let's see if our friend Joseph insists that he puts it into words. You made your point, says Harry. Not good enough. That's our thing, words. Conclude. Don't gish gallop or do a tangent or do a whataboutism, all of these bullshit things used by fascists to prevent them putting into words a conclusion. Don't do that. Put it into words. Let's see what Joseph says. Then you agree that the art of governing depends on being able to distinguish, judge, good advice from the bad. Got him. He's using analogy, he's using metaphor to explain the principle. Division step of the dialect. Or demonstration, you could say. Giving an example. The art of governing depends on being able to distinguish good advice from the bad. Yes, says Harry. And poor advice is poor when it mistakes what is taken to be advantageous. Maybe you can say that. You mean you wouldn't say that some groups do better and so are better when they have benefited from good advice as to what is So he's pulling him up on the maybe. You mean you wouldn't say that some groups do better and so are better when they have benefited from good advice as to what is advantageous to them? Logically, that may follow. That's all. So he's making a distinction between logic or reason and reality. Interesting state of mind he's in. Is Joseph going to pull him up, or is he going to let that go for the sake of the conversation to keep flowing? And wouldn't you say that if the advice fails, isn't it because it wasn't able to determine what would be advantageous or harmful? So it's distinguishing between beneficial and harmful. The consequences. This idea that all opinions are the same, he's saying, okay, that may be your position, but let's look at how they function. What's the consequence? Well, if some advice is bad and some advice is good, and some belief and some groups that follow that advice are benefited or harmed, then there's a difference. You can't say that all advice is equal if we see a consequence of benefit or harm. I guess I agree. Interesting language. And isn't such advice concerned with the future? Because it surely isn't something that is visible, which we can perceive or experience before us. For the future is not yet, but that which is yet to come to pass. But didn't you say that knowledge was perception? And that's something that must take place in the present, right? So we've gone from good or bad advice to make a judgment that he wasn't able to make. Don't judge opinions, don't judge beliefs. It's whatever is true to whoever thinks it's true. But if there is a good or bad that results, listening to different advice, we have to judge. Now he's gone to, if everything is personal perception, how can you perceive the future? And we have to make judgments about how we act based on how it will affect us in the future. So now he's targeting the idea of perception. All knowledge is perception. Yeah, that's so. It's in the future, I'm with you. So that while each group may have different goals, they all use the same way to judge. How one view is better or wiser than another. Do they not? Now we've moved into personal opinions and personal perspectives into the transpersonal, that which is always true or a principle. We use the same method. And we've been talking about the dialectic, haven't we? Which is a method of reaching truth and purifying what's false. So they use the same way to judge what's better or worse, even if they have different goals. Oh. So, says Harry. So, well, don't groups benefit when the advice turns out to their advantage? Surely when the advice allows some excellence to develop, doesn't the group function better through that better advice? Interesting. He's actually providing a legitimate goal. Like some groups, of course, want to exploit and profit, especially in a capitalist, ignorant society. But shouldn't it make the group, even if the group's end goals are bad, in order to achieve those bad goals, doesn't the group have to act with excellence? So again, bringing in a transpersonal idea so that we can go from personal ignorance and belief to truth. And we can recognize the word excellence. If it's a transpersonal idea, it will be one of the self logos. What do you know? It's even on the board. Excellent. All right. So, transpersonal idea of excellence to tie to benefit. So if a group takes good advice, wouldn't they develop some excellence within their group? That allows the group to function better through that better advice. Consequences. Harry says, only if they believe it to be so. Starting to sound a little bit absurd, Harry. Don't you think that some groups survive? Consequences again. Because they have acted upon the kind of advice that allowed them to survive rather than perish? Isn't that better advice? So we see the chain of his thinking, right? It's right on the board. He said, so Harry's idea is there is no truth and all opinions are equal. Equally true. Equally true. So what our friend Joseph did is go, okay, from opinions, people give their advice. And it's easier to see to advice of groups. That advice can lead to excellence in functioning So at each stage, Harry could make a distinction that they're not all equal. So is all advice equal? There's a question. Like, aren't there some dumb people in the group that if you took their advice that you would have dumb results? If all advice isn't equal, then all opinions wouldn't be equal. Therefore, there is some standard of truth beyond personal opinions. You could say, oh, well, you know, if they believed that they were getting good advice, then it's just as true. So he wasn't able to answer that question yet. Hey, but, well, we can judge whether or not the advice was good or bad. Good or bad advice based on whether or not it gives rise to excellence of functioning. It's all functioning equal. Good or excellent versus bad functioning. Oh yeah, no, some groups do terrible things or fall apart or have corruption or whatever. Therefore, if that was as a result of the advice, then all advice can't be equal, which means all opinions can't be equal. This all leads back to all opinions equal. But notice, again, Harry fell back on, well, yeah, you can have, there is no standard of excellence in functioning because I'm supposed to zoom. I zoom in, and I mog the haters, and then I zoom out to the board or the text. Hey, when the advice allows some excellence to develop, doesn't the group function better through that better advice? Which means that this step to excellence is different from functioning. So technically we could say, so you could ask this question first. Hey, does good advice lead to benefit? And that benefit would be a kind of excellence within the group. But that can be hard to see, but what you can see is functioning. So what's he doing? He's gone from definition, hey, benefit? No? What about excellence? How do you see that excellence functioning from definition to demonstration to functioning? So see excellence of functioning. So there are a few extra steps you could take depending on who you're talking to, but it is easier to see when you give examples or demonstrations. That's how you see the thing. Now he says, well, He says, Morg the haters. Damn it. No, we're right. He says, so doesn't the group function better with that excellence through that better advice? Only if they believe it to be so. Don't you think certain groups survive? Again, something you can see, something kind of urgent or important. You can't say, well, religion doesn't affect someone. I don't see it unless they're a fundamentalist blowing people up. You don't see it immediately. You need more object permanence, or you need to be able to reason into the future, as we're seeing. It's not a matter of perception. You've got to be able to reason. Oh yeah, fascists use religion. Women are exploited and enslaved through religion. Even if you don't blow someone up, you might teach your kids that they are evil and bad because they're a woman and Eve gave the apple to Adam or some bullshit. Very common. And you might not be doing a genocide, but you'll vote for Trump, who does a genocide, and buy his Bible, or whatever he's selling to religious people. So certain groups survive because they have acted on the advice that have allowed them to survive, then perish. Isn't that better advice? So there's the next step. From functioning to survival. And therefore you can ask the question, if we have space, do some groups not survive? So you're giving the immediate consequences so they can actually use their mind and think. And this is super important to philosophy because in a way we're preparing for our death. We know that we're only on Earth for a certain amount of time. Don't know when we're going to go. But shouldn't we be preparing for our death? Either the way we die and the resulting, what results from that kind of death? Whether we reincarnate, if we do reincarnate, do we reincarnate into a shitty life where we're plagued with injustice? And some people say no one knows what happens when you die because they can't perceive it in the immediate. The same people who say, yeah, allow religions to exist because I don't see a problem with that. It's not immediate in your perception in the present. You have to think into the future. And we have, as animals, we have that capacity because we can reflect on ourselves. That's ousia, and we can do so with reason and language. That's the logos. To be able to think into the future for our benefit. The excellence not for just for groups, but for our soul. So everything that we see here being talked about in terms of groups, we can be carrying within an analogy, as an analogy to our soul and our self. Because that's the whole point. That's what it's all about. They're saying, hey, what did you learn about philosophy? I heard you got into Plato. Did you, Joseph? I was traveling. Got a whole different lot of opinions from different people. And I went to this bullshit college where they taught philosophy as a love of opinion. What did you get by going to Golden West, where you see people who do this kind of stuff? What they're talking about. They're talking about you as a self, as a soul. So do certain groups survive? Could make the same question, make the same kind of question about our soul. Do groups survive or not? giving him a standard to look at so he can't dismiss it as everything is just whatever you want it to be. Some groups survive or not. Therefore, if you say, oh yeah, actually I've seen some groups fail. Did they fail because they were not functioning well? Causing their failure and lack of survival? And that was because they acted on some bad advice? And so that advice was based on someone's opinion? Therefore, if they went to a different person with a different opinion, it would have been better? This is how the dialectic works. Sometimes people are on board straight away. If you've gone through this before, if you've seen through this before, you can say, hey, you know how truth is transpersonal, it's not a matter of opinion. Oh yeah, yeah, of course. Well, have you ever wondered how we discover truth in this lifetime? Because if we recognize true and false things or beautiful and just things, where do we learn it? Can't have been in this physical world. So is learning a kind of remembering? See, that's a line you could take, a line of reflection with someone. We see that in the Phaedo. But if they're not okay with the first step, hey, you know how, truth is transpersonal, it's not a matter of opinion. No. What? I don't think that. Oh, you don't think truth is transpersonal? No, I think it's all about personal opinion and perspective. Oh, okay. But don't some people give advice based on their opinions? Have you ever gotten bad advice? No, because if I believed it was good advice, then it was good advice for me, because everything is just a matter of opinion. And if it seems true, then it's your truth. It's your truth, says Oprah. Oh, okay. By the way, some groups would have to take advice, right? Even if leaders are only listening to their own advice, they're still listening to their own opinions, right? Sure. If you're not okay with there being good and bad advice, do some groups function, develop an excellence, or benefit from that advice? And that can be confusing. By benefit, I mean reach an excellence. And I can see how you might be confused by that word excellence. What I mean is an excellence of functioning. Some groups end up functioning more excellently within themselves. No, I think there's no difference. If you believe it, then you believe you're... Oh, okay. But do some groups fail and not survive because of that lack of excellence, because of that bad advice, because of that opinion, because opinions are not the same? Oh, yeah. Now I'm with you. So now we're together, and we can take that next step in the conversation we were going to have about whether or not learning is about remembering, or whatever it was you were talking about. See, clever, isn't it? Providing the conditions. Notice it's not debate, me versus you, us versus them.
Debate dweeb.
Where you're trying to defend the bleeps you already have. No. It's a win-win.
It's a win-win-win-win-win.
They win by seeing through their false beliefs that block them. You win by testing your level of seeing and your ability to communicate that through understanding. And it's mutual, it's transpersonal. You both come together. So it's friendly. It's not adversarial, all this competition shit. My religion has to kill your religion so we have all of the land. Or my political party has to gerrymander so we have all of the winning of the seats. I have to exploit through capitalism so I have all the profits. Bullfucking shit. We're in this together. This is a demonstration of what it means to be good and rational and human. We both come together. We both benefit. This competition shit is a scam. Oh, but it breeds innovation, does it? How many people have been murdered for challenging the oil industry or the war industry? Famously. JFK, shot in the head by the CIA. Challenging capitalist exploitation, Martin Luther, etc., etc. Doesn't breed innovation, does the opposite. Oh, but they make jobs. Do they? Or are they trying to remove all jobs through, hey, by the way, through AI? No one wants jobs. Jobs are not intrinsically beneficial. Otherwise, the rich would have bought them all. Oh, but it will trickle down. Well, yeah, has it? No. Oh, yeah, but they're actually geniuses. Have you seen them talk? They're sociopathic sadists, and they're stupid. Have you ever seen Joe Rogan? They all go on Joe Rogan for propaganda. They're not Tony Stark. They're liars, and they're people who have sick beliefs from their childhood, like everyone. They're no more. They haven't gone through a development of excellence within their soul. Philosophy. And so what's the last remaining argument they have? They're picked by God. The king and queen get to do their injustice and sadism and exploitation because God says so. Trump posts himself as AI Jesus. Netanyahu says, I get to be modern Hitler because it was promised 3,000 years ago by some religious bullshit. The last excuse to justify their tyrannical oppression over others based on their sick beliefs. And it's always competition. Why? Because they have to get the people to hate each other and enact violence over each other so they can manipulate that violence to protect their wealth and exploitation. Whereas we're seeing that this is the opposite of debate, the opposite of competition, the opposite of philodoxia, academic philosophy. It's win-win, it's for everyone. Everyone benefits. No more competition stuff. Harry might not be there yet, because when asked, hey, do some groups survive or do some perish? Based on better advice. If they acted upon the kind of advice that allowed them to survive rather than perish, isn't that better advice? Can we judge yet? Are you at the stage of dialectic where you can judge? And Mr. Harry says, survival? They survived because they believed in the advice and acted upon it. That's all. Ooh. Help us out, Joseph. And does that have to do with what was going on around them? So again, Harry's fantasy that, oh, if you just believe you'll survive, you will. By talking about what's going on around him, he's introducing objective standards of truth. Surviving within an environment, right? You can't just pretend a different world. It's not surviving in Mario Galaxy Planet. You know what they say, don't you? It's the power of positive thinking that makes things happen. Haven't we heard that before? Maybe not all thoughts and prayers, right? Just believe yourself. Believe ourselves out of enslavement by religious, conservative, and capitalist beliefs. Just believe yourself out of your sickness. Thoughts and prayers. Positive thinking that makes things happen. Maybe not always. But there are enough of us who see it. Well, would you still say that whatever anyone believes will come to pass must come to pass simply because at some moment it seemed true to him, to whom it seemed true? Magic thinking. Belief. Irrational steps. Believe it will happen, and magic will mean it will happen. Irrational steps. Well, maybe. Then consider another thing, Harry. If it were important for you to determine whether the information or advice you received was sound, wouldn't you want to discover the truth of the matter for yourself? Maybe. But in the end, we can only accept what we can believe, right? Joseph, would you say that if you believed in something strongly, that believing would make it so? Indeed, there are some men and institutions who seem to be shielded from criticism, even though they continue advising us and warning us about their belief of an impending inevitable catastrophe. And then, rather than abandon the belief when the event fails to occur, they still insist it will occur sometime in the near future. Now, it certainly seemed true to them that it was or will be inevitable. They can't give up on the belief. For every moment and circumstance, they believe it will be true, yet it never has been true. So, in what sense is your position like theirs? Right? Quite obvious. Believe in Jeepers or the world will end tomorrow. Doesn't happen. 2012 doesn't happen. By the way, this Armageddon rapture thing was supposed to happen within Paul's lifetime, thousands of years ago. Didn't happen then, but there are many religious groups who say it will happen. Jesus will come back. We just need to kill more Palestinian people, kill more Muslims, right? Give nuclear weapons to Israel. Then Jesus will come back. Hang on, wasn't it supposed to happen in Paul's lifetime? So they keep pushing the goalposts because they are shielded from criticism by this very belief that we allow to exist in our society. That all opinions are the same, but don't ever judge politicians' beliefs or religious people's beliefs or capitalist beliefs. And he's saying, hey, aren't you doing the same thing, Harry? Aren't you pushing the goalposts back? Every time you come to see there was truth in math or science, you say, oh, okay, but not morals and ethics. Not in religion and politics. Oh, but then you saw that some religious or political groups fail? Based on bad advice? Based on bad opinions? Oh yeah, but that was only because they didn't believe hard enough. So how are you like them? Harry says, I'm not sure where this is going. Say, Joseph, why don't you include Aaliyah here in our talk? Let's include her. Oops. Here she is. Just when I was getting to enjoy this, you pull out. I'll tell you what I do think, Joseph. There still might be something in what Harry says, though not as much as what he believes. But I came along to hear how you'd answer Harry's charges, and now it looks like I'm about to be pulled in. Hey, yeah, Joseph, what's going on? You turn the tables around. You were going to tell us what has been happening around here, and now look at this. You have us defending our views while you're off the hook. Perhaps. But remember the Greeks' challenge, that we can't understand unless we see through a belief and give up the one that blocks us from understanding. Well, Harry, what belief do you think it is? So them's be the stakes. Let's step outside of this noisy cafe and review what we've seen. Here we are. I'm in the window. So, we've seen that there's a structure within Joseph's thoughts. There are certain terms he uses. Equally, there's a certain lack of structure or opposition to structure and a certain different set of keywords that Harry uses. and even when led to the conclusion that there are certain groups that don't survive, therefore they didn't reach their successful functioning or excellence because of their bad advice, based on opinions, and if they had taken different opinions and got different advice, they would have survived. Therefore, all opinions aren't true. He pushed the goalpost back and said, well, I'm going to throw all that out the window and restate it that it was because they didn't believe the advice hard enough. Right? Just like when something doesn't happen, you didn't pray hard enough to Jeebus or Allah or Abraham or Joseph Smith with his magic underpants. Gooners. How are you like that? And by the way, we can see a fantastic example of this because they've been talking about the rapture and Armageddon happening within Paul's lifetime if you don't repent. To this day, when I'm playing music out in public, I walk past these people with these signs saying, repent, the end is near. In fucking Australia, can you believe it? Crazy shit. But then it doesn't happen when they said when it was going to happen in Paul's lifetime and in every century since. So they're blocked from judging even the validity of their own beliefs by a loyalty to that false belief. And that false belief can never come under criticism for some reason. Certain groups you can't criticize. Anti-Semitic, anti-American, woke, inappropriate, rude, all that sort of shit. Well, everyone's entitled to their... So the fundamental underlying premise behind all of that shielding beliefs from criticism is the very one on the sign above us. Everything is relative to personal opinions, don't be rude. Or, as Socrates says in the last book, the mysteries of philosophy reveal truth, yours conceal it with piety, or an appeal to politeness or piety. So, following along very nicely, very well structured, using the self-logos terms, and when led to a conclusion, Harry hit a block and then tried to pull out. And Aaliyah called him out in a very clever way. Hey, I was starting to enjoy this, Harry, and you're pulling out? Where's your stamina? And then Harry says, well, hang on a second. Yeah, I was wanting to hear what you guys are doing. Now, for us, it's on Twitch and YouTube, but for them, it's in Golden West, back before the internet days. Area of California where Pierre hung out, and there were some people who gathered around him to explore these ideas in these kinds of ways. The author of the book we're reading. I was lucky enough to hang out there a little while myself. So, I thought you were going to tell us what you were doing. Has he been telling them? By demonstrating it? I'm going to lead you through what I was led through. So we are making fun of the idea, but we can see ourselves in Harry. This is one of, if not the most common belief of our culture. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion. And there's surely no harm with belief-based groups like conservatism, capitalism, and clergy. Surely not. And isn't it rude to challenge them? And if they want to keep moving the goalposts, then let them, because who are you to judge? But there must have been some demonstration of proof that allowed Joseph to change his mind. But it's not working for Harry. He's rejecting not his false belief, but he's rejecting reason itself. The dialogue itself, the conclusions itself, the dialectic, the very purpose, so it seems, of us as human beings learning through time, learning to master understanding. The dialectic. He's rejecting what's good to be loyal to what's false and bad and harmful. And if we take the other aspects of what we're seeing, harmful beliefs that prevent an excellence within his soul, prevent his good functioning, preventing his benefit, and might lead to his failure or perishing. Many a tragic play has ended with the tragic hero not examining his false beliefs in time, causing his tragic demise. So everything about groups we can apply to our soul. That's the stakes. If we don't examine our false beliefs, they can play out perilously to our tragic demise. Currently, Harry is still stuck to his beliefs rather than truth and understanding and dialect. And then Joseph says, when Harry says, hang on a second, yeah, you were asking me. I thought you were going to tell us what you guys were doing. And someone could ask our friend Reeve here, hey, Reeve, what are you guys doing on this crazy Twitch channel, which doesn't have nearly as many followers as what would be just? And Reeve could, whatever Reeve has gone through and taking him from where he started to where he is now, he could lead this new person through. But ultimately, it comes down to a key principle that we are seeing. Let's jump back in 1 second here. Get rid of the dudes. Hey, who are you? Ignore that strange man. That the waiter at the Greek restaurant, or the owner of the Greek restaurant, who was it? Let's go right back to the start. It was the... So they're at the Greek Corner, this restaurant and cafe. And one of the owner's friends heard us talking in our usual manner and said we were certainly having fun joking around, but we lacked a certain discipline. What's that discipline? Are we seeing more about it? In what way, this is a question for you, in what way is Joseph more disciplined than Harry is, have we seen already? And without that discipline, it is unlikely that we will ever rise above humor. Ever been with groups like that? Like a kind of discipline in some way that just makes them all just joke around in nonsensical absurdity? And we laughed, says Joseph, and said, what's the need for discipline to say what we feel? Right? Just express your own opinions and feelings, right? Who cares? You don't need discipline. Say anything. Aren't you stifling my freedom to say whatever I want, however I want to say it? Now, what's interesting is that all this was done in a spirit of fun. As we've been saying, we've been having fun here. It's the best game. But some of us began to wonder just where this discussion was going when he said that unless we learn to explore ideas in a certain way, are we learning to explore ideas in a certain way? Then we will never be able to reach understanding, that which is true and transpersonal and beneficial, much less understand one another. Do you care about understanding yourself and your friends or your loved ones? Do we need this kind of discipline in how we think and explore ideas? Hey, wait a minute, says Harry. You mean you guys were just clowning around and having fun and some joker came along and said you weren't understanding each other? Now that's a laugh. You're laughing and joking and he said you weren't understanding one another? Joseph replies. Got much more interesting when he threw out a challenge. He said that none of us can understand himself or anyone else unless we give up or see through what we believe in. And that if we can't do that, it is unlikely that we can reach a deeper understanding of anything else either, be it human society, be it these institutions that have power over us and might be leading to our destruction, our own soul, our own self, the meaning of our life, what we're here to achieve, how we can die well, what can be the successful result of a successful death. Any of those things, you won't be able to understand any of them unless you can give up or see through what you believe in. Masking his seriousness behind a bit of playfulness, he said he will offer a free cup of coffee to anyone who could prove him wrong. But he insisted on one condition: that we would have to first understand his possession. Are we coming to a deeper understanding of his position by seeing how Harry might be blocked from understanding himself, his own ignorance, his own false beliefs, and even Joseph's position, and Aaliyah, who may or may not be his girlfriend? Is he blocked from a belief that he can't sacrifice or see through, let go of or see through? What was the word? Unless you give up. Can you give it up? And what does it take to give it up? So Harry's saying, I thought you were going to tell me about what's going on here, and all you've done is led me through a series of structured, rational steps exploring an idea that is true and transpersonal, while causing me to hit my blocks that prevent me from understanding that position and understanding you, and maybe even understanding myself and my lack of excellence in my own functioning that may lead to my perishing. And then Joseph says, hang on a second, isn't that what the friend of the owner of the Greek shop mentioned? Wasn't that his challenge? That we can't understand unless we see through a belief and give up the one that blocks us from understanding. Well, Harry, what belief do you think that is? What is that girl doing over there? That's weird. Zooey! 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 You have to find out what those people are doing, emerging out of nowhere. Anyway, what belief do you think that is? Are you starting to see something in what that challenge was from that strange man? Can you prove him wrong? Can we offer a cup of coffee to you? And if you want to share your thoughts and your puzzlements and what you're seeing, you can join the Discord. You can drop a comment below, and maybe we can find a challenge to offer a cup of coffee to someone out there in a similar way. How's it going? Is it fun? Are you having fun? Can we have disciplined reflection in a fun way? Does it have to be one or the other? Is this more fun than just having some idiot vomit their beliefs over you at some restaurant or some pub and then strut away as if they're smart, while also functioning in a harmful way that may be the cause of his own peril? To be able to free us from that ignorance, is that more fun? What do you think? What belief do you think it is that we have to give up and see through that may block us from understanding? By the way, how are your dreams going? Are you reflecting on the dreams that you're having between these episodes? Can you... Here's a challenge. Here's a challenge that we can offer. This is our challenge for a cup of coffee. As we are going through and learning how to read in this new kind of way, without interpretation, without belief, following the steps, but also seeing if there's a structure, if there are certain key words, if there's a use of analogy going on, that gives us puzzles to solve that we can apply to ourselves in a meaningful way. Can you find a way of applying it not just to this text, but to your dreams? Not take it literally, but listen, but is there a similar drama going on within your dreams? And does it reflect what's going on in the reading and your puzzling and your beliefs that may block you? Can you develop a system of reading them? Or hey, even just paying attention, recording them as soon as you wake up into audio, transcribing them into text, giving them a read, and seeing if any puzzles jump out. I wonder if that makes your reading of this book more interesting and fun. Might cost you 10 minutes in the morning, Another 10 minutes to load it up into a transcription audio device. Another 10 minutes to give it a read. Is that a kind of discipline that might be needed to have fun in a more meaningful way and learn to understand ourselves, yourself, each other, and maybe even give up or see through any blocks that prevent us from understanding? Something to wonder about. Thanks for joining me. There's a link to the text, a PDF to the text below. You can join the Discord. You can follow me on Twitch. You could donate to the channel if you like to and have the means. It is gratefully appreciated. And I will see you with your questions, your puzzlement, maybe a dream in your back pocket, and maybe even a hypothesis about what belief they're talking about here in the next one. I'll see you then.